We are on KGRA. We are on podcasts. We are on the internet. We're on Dave's Mind. Yep, we're on Dave's Mind. Go for it, Dave. Yeah, so we are definitely out there. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, a little bit of technical difficulty as usual.
The pilot is switching the wrong dials. We have dialers and sliders and twisters.
You know what the problem is that, it's a joke that we always make. Every time we come in here, everything's a little different.
So we're cruising the cosmos without a compass.
That is true. I like that, Dave. You need to make us another promo where you say we're cruising the cosmos without a compass.
Oh yeah, my role actually here is in the professional terms is the wig tapper. So when the host and the guests start to flip their wigs because they're traveling into the fog ionosphere, I help monitor that. The wig tapper.
Okay. All right. All right. So tonight we have a really cool guest on. His name is Bruce McDonald. He was born in Ottawa, Canada. He has a journalism degree from Ryerson University in Toronto. He has worked in Canada, the United States, and Europe as a technical writer, editor, and designer in the fields of software and telecommunications. I started my career as a technical writer. I was a technical writer for 6 months.
Telecommunications.
No, it was in software. And then they realized they knew Unix, and that's when I stopped being a technical writer. So in 2014, he moved to the province of Limon in Costa Rica, where he lives in a small farm in the Talamanca Mountains. His wife, Rosemary, they farm abaca, a male banana plant which produces fiber used to make paper and other products. Bruce, are you there?
I am. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on.
Yeah. So, can I start with an abaca story?
Absolutely.
So it was a good little business. I started with 7 hectares I inherited when my father-in-law passed, and I built it out to 14 hectares. It's quite costly to plant a hectare.
I bet.
When you get into I mean, it's not super expensive. It's not like doing a pool in your backyard in San Diego, but it's probably about 3 or 4 thousand a hectare to get it planted.
Right.
And I was selling the fiber for $1.75 a kilogram to a German company called Galtfelter, and they were making tea bags out of it. So abaca is mainly used in paper products. It's also a really good rope for sailors because it's waterproof. Water doesn't affect it at all over decades.
Oh, wow.
It's sometimes called Manila hemp.
Okay, I've heard of that.
And that's why back in the 70s and 80s, when they would have those really tough yellow envelopes in government offices, they used to call them Manila
No
envelopes.
envelopes.
Yeah, because they were made out of abaca.
Oh, wow.
So guess what happened? I'm looking for a buyer now because Galtfelter went out of business because Joe Biden bombed Nord Stream 2.
Okay.
That's how small the world is.
And it gets smaller all the time.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I leave North America, and the biggest effect American politics has ever had on my life is down here.
That's how it works. Central America always feels the effects of North America.
You got howler monkeys to boot.
Yeah. Yeah, they're quite something. Do you know they're the loudest sound in nature? They're up around a Who concert, 120 decibels.
Oh, wow.
The male mating call, you can hear it 2 or 3 kilometers away off in the jungle. Sorry, I'm Canadian. I speak
Uh,
metric. I know you
No,
guys.
that's
What's
okay.
a hectare? What's a kilometer? I mean,
No, no, that's fine.
What the
We're,
hector?
we are international over here at the Enigma Hour.
yeah.
No, that's
So
cool.
yeah, you hear the howler monkeys. It's this incredible sound they make, man. Yeah, it's quite something.
Yeah, I studied primatology. I'm familiar with that sound.
Wow. Yeah.
I've heard it quite a number of times.
Here at the Dome, we have ravens.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Yeah.
And we have a special foothill dialect
that's
of
what you were saying. Yeah,
Ravenese.
Ravenese. So now I talked to our good buddy Ron, who helps us, get people on the show,
Yeah.
and he said that when it comes to shamanism, you've got quite a bit of knowledge.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm a shaman myself, but yeah, yeah, I'll say I have quite a bit of knowledge of it. Yeah, I mean, I've been living in the rainforest for a decade now, and I mean in the rainforest. It's 7.5 kilometers up a dirt road, and my neighbors are what we call campesinos down here, which means peasant in Spanish, and Quebecar natives who've been living the same way for millennia up here. And the place I live, the Talamanca Mountains, is a UNESCO heritage site. And I'm about at the end of the line, as far up the road as you can go. Now, the road goes another 5 kilometers, but it's touch and go whether you can keep going past my place, depending on how much rain there is. And yeah, it's an incredible place. I mean, we've got I think 5 or 6 different kinds of big cats. We've got pumas, mountain lions, jaguars, ocelots, and I forget the other ones. And every kind of snake you can imagine, giant spiders that urinate acid.
Urinate
Um,
acid.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you wear your knee boots when you
knee-high
and
Welling.
chompers.
Yeah, you don't leave the property unless you've got knee-high rubber boots on. Yeah, you nailed it. That protects you from the snake bites, but the bigger ones, if you get a terciopelo, what you guys might call a fer-de-lance,
Oh yeah.
up around a meter or bigger, they might be able to bite right through a rubber boot, or they might go high and get you in the back of the hamstring. But
I got,
you gotta really bother them. I mean, you can when I'm walking the jungle paths. You can pass by them 6 or 10 inches, coiled and sleeping. And if you don't deliberately go out of your way to bother them, they're not going to bother you. You generally get bit when you step on them. And so, as we say when we're walking up here, never leave the path.
well, that's true in all things, I think.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
is true.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Never.
yeah, what are they called? Chiggers. When I was in Oklahoma, you had to wear your boots because the chiggers would get on your legs. And
I don't know what that is.
They're
they're just biting insects.
yeah, it's kind of like a mosquito,
Ah,
sort of, but when they bite, like the welts are huge and it bleeds a lot.
oh, okay. Yeah, we've got insects up here that you can get flesh-eating disease from. But
Oh yeah.
you get to know the bites quite early on. And I've been bitten by them probably about a dozen times, but you got to catch it in the first like 72 hours. And all you do is you cut a lemon in half and just apply a little bit of lemon juice to it. But a lot of people who come to visit here and they do a rainforest hiking tour,
Oh right.
they don't know the simple remedies that the people who live in the mountains know. And
Sure.
they get home and 6 weeks after their Costa Rica vacation, they're visiting the Center for Disease Control.
That's usually how it works.
And
Yeah.
all they needed was a little lemon, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of lemon or lime, a little bit of citrus acid. Yeah.
So what got you interested in the spirituality stuff, the shamanism, spirituality, metaphysics?
Well, I've been meditating since 17 and I'm 58 now, 59 in July.
You do not look 58. I got to be honest with you. I can see him on the camera.
Yeah.
You do not look 58.
That's why they have me off screen.
Yeah, I'm 59 in July. So I started out as a lifestyle meditator in the
Yeah.
West. It just, I remember just washing the cloth napkins for a steakhouse I was a busboy at when I was 17 in Ottawa. One of my first jobs, and there was a poster. One of my jobs as the busboy was to take the cloth napkins in the afternoon and wash them at the laundromat
Okay.
for the dinner rush. And there was a poster on a corkboard, learn how to meditate. So I went, and I came from a traditional Catholic family. Nobody in my family meditated, and I went and I learned how to meditate, and I started doing it. And for a couple decades, I was 30 minutes an hour a day, but up here it can go 2, 4, 6 hours a day. It's almost a monastic level now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that the meditation is really the main footpath into the spiritual life at an experiential level. You can become a Franciscan or a Jesuit and talk shit for the rest of your life if you want. But I think meditation is the experiential level. Now, shamanism is more ritually based, and it mainly what I like about what I've learned about shamanism up here, and the Kebakar love me. They love me and my son, and which is quite a compliment because they don't like Costa Ricans or Nicaraguans that much.
Right.
And I've been to the reserve a number of times. In fact, I'm starting a little tourism business, taking people up to the reserve to camp. I've been to their burial grounds, which are quite phenomenal, phenomenal energy. And I've met the matriarch. Nobody knows for sure how old she is, but it's somewhere between 130 and 140. She can still,
Really?
yeah, she can still walk 10 or 20 kilometers in a day.
That's
Um,
wild.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
what jungle living will do for you.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a blue zone.
Yeah, well, I jungle living, I think close to the equator is the best. They're kind of, you guys know some of these famous Central and South American tribes. Not the Quebecar aren't really well known. Nobody's ever done any documentaries on them or anything, but they're they're similar to the Kogi in Colombia in the Sierra
Okay.
Nevada mountain range. Do you guys know those guys?
I'm somewhat familiar.
Yeah, so they're kind of similar in that they've maintained their traditional way of life. Now, the Kogi actually weave their own clothes from fibers they extract from plants in the jungle. The Kabakar don't do that. They're very comfortable in Levi's 501s
Yeah.
and an old navy shirt. But aside from that, they still build their traditional houses, which are um, slatboard yurts in which the wood is vertical, and then they do a banana leaf roof that's what is it, concave or convex? It goes up like a cone, and
Right.
they don't use any nails. Everything is tied off with vines they gather.
Oh, wow.
And when you go and you stay in one overnight, it really is quite a an energetic experience. So shamanism is basically about it's the root of all spirituality because it deals with the elemental things, the elemental spirits and the natural forces, and it's very, very astral. And
Right.
it can go beyond that for sure. I mean,
Well, you living in a conical house, you just always look up.
that's right. Yeah. Now
That's true.
and they do a fire right in the center of the circle. They keep it going all night, and there's no chimney. But what happens is all the smoke goes and it just sits up there. And when you're on the hammock and you're sleeping and you're looking at this smoke above you by firelight, it kind of has the texture of looking at a lake or something. It's
Really?
really, yeah, it's really hypnotic. And then the Kabakar told me they say that the more fires you burn in the house over the years and decades, the better it is for the banana leaf roof. It makes it more and more more and more waterproof. I don't know how that works, but that's what they say.
So how long have you been working with them?
Well, I'm going to be starting working with them probably
Okay.
this year. I'm just finishing up the my very slow moving project here.
Yeah.
My principal living house has been built for about 8 years, and then I'm just building around it now and getting everything ready for tourism. So I had to build another bathroom
Sure.
and a shower, and everything you build this far into the jungle pretty much comes from around you. So anything I have wooden here is um is generally from the rainforest. Now, you're not allowed to cut wood and sell it over here, but if you live in the area and you own the land, you're allowed to cut it down for personal use. And my actual houses are, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of hyperadobe or earth bag building. Yeah.
Actually, I have.
Yeah. So I have four earth bag homes up here. The guest house for the tourists is in the back, and that's three big bedrooms, about 300 square feet each, and then 1,000 square foot roofed patio that looks onto the Talamanca Mountains. And I made what used to be my bodega, my storage shed, which is about 140 square feet, but also earth bag. I made it into my office and just where I do my podcasting and interviews and stuff like that as well, because I married into a huge family and there's always kids running around screaming, nieces and nephews and stuff like that.
Sure.
I don't know what it is about North America, but I'll tell you this, nobody else is afraid to breed. I mean, they can be living in a dirt floor shack and they'll have five kids. I don't know what it is with North Americans, but yeah.
So what is your podcast mostly about?
Well, I call it the Talamanca Review, and
Uh-huh.
it's kind of hard to really encapsulate. You'd have to listen to a few episodes. I would call it spiritual journalism. Yeah, looking at the world from a multidimensional perspective, right? So I've got my base journalism degree, which once you get a journalism degree, you cannot become fully detached from the world. You'll never stop reading news every day. It just gets into you as a reflex.
I used to
And
work as a reporter.
four?
I used to work as a reporter, and I
Four?
still I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Print reporter, broadcast?
Brent.
Oh, nice. May I ask where?
For leisure publications, be the Brentwood News, the Antioch Ledger, and did I say the Pittsburgh Post Dispatch?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
The Pittsburgh Post-Dispatch was a daily, was it not?
yes, they were dailies.
Yeah. Oh, they're all dailies. Wow.
Yeah.
What was your beat?
Well, I started off doing just going and seeing what the police report was, and then I got involved in I did win a prize doing a death. A kid killed his girlfriend when found out she was pregnant. It was the fire chief's son, and they refused. And it was a big police cover up, a big cover up.
Wow.
But I took a soft approach, I didn't
Hmm.
blast it hard on.
Yeah.
And I also did some editorial cartooning.
Wow. That's quite to go from writing to cartooning. You don't generally find those in one person.
Well, it's like I told them, I actually won an award, California Newspaper Publishers Association. But I told them, I says, it's not the drawing, it's the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, mine was a little bit better than stick figures, but it's kind of had that odd Bodkins kind of look to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Very cool. Yeah.
So what kind of stuff have you been reporting on recently?
Well, I've just been book writing. I've written four books up here. And then I have a day job. I haven't quit working. I work remotely. It's I w- I- had you stayed In technical writing, you would have ended up in the same place all older technical writers end up, and that is grant writing for commission. It's the major leagues
Fair
of
enough.
technical writing, right? Because if you get good at it, you can, a month's work can pay you. If your client gets their grant, you can end up with what you might have made 4 months working full time for a month's work. So that's what I do, and and then I've written some really weird and strange books. One which has gone on to become something of a cult classic. I published December 31st, 2019, and to this day, I still get calls from TV producers, and that was Stardust Ranch: The Incredible
Stardust
Truth.
Ranch.
Yeah, yeah, and then I followed that up with a kind of a biography I wrote of a very interesting gentleman. He comes and visits all the time and stays 3 months now. His name is Robert Wiegand, and he was a Navy SEAL and a CIA contractor and a number of other things. And he had a story to tell, that one we called The Light of Darkness. And then I wrote a book with another gentleman who was an Akashic record reader, and we called that one the Galactic Historian. A very interesting book. And then I kind of wrote a biography to finish out the quartet, and that was called The Devil in Us: A Memoir of You and Me. And I just looked at 4 generations of my family.
Pretty
And
dark stuff.
do you think?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's a hell of a title.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And not as dark as you might think, though. And I've come to the belief that all the light is in the darkness, actually. And now
Yeah, they say that.
I'm not advocating you go out and you study the Thelma religion, or become a devotee of Aleister Crowley, or a dark Kabbalist or anything like that. But when you're going through your life, don't be, as Jung said, engage your shadow, and
Sure.
that's where your true self is, I think. So,
Well, at
so
least parts of it.
well, most of it. I think the unconscious is the larger portion of consciousness, right? And
Yeah.
that's where all the dark stuff gets held. We have this
Hmm.
filter in us. Who put it in? I don't know. But I don't know if life would be livable without it.
Yeah,
But
then there's non-local consciousness. So you have to contend with too. There's a
yeah,
collective unconscious and
Sure.
yeah, yeah,
all those
yeah.
different levels. You got to have a filter for day to day.
Yeah, you would not be able to make a sandwich if you didn't.
Although you life would be hard if every once in a while you didn't pull away that curtain.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so
Uh,
yeah,
I I noticed in that Stardust Ranch, is that what the book was called? And you
yeah.
said that you didn't have really much interest in UFOs and things like that.
Well, hang on. Why don't you give us a basic background on Stardust Ranch? Because some people may not have read it.
Okay, so I'll do better.
Okay.
I'll do the Trinity in Utah and Arizona, the 3 big ranches. So you got Skinwalker, you got
Right.
Bradshaw, and you've got Stardust. And I believe they're all on the 33rd parallel.
That makes
And
sense. It's the highway.
yeah, and for my money, the most outrageous is Stardust. And I get TV producers calling me from like Georgia just to tell me they read the book. Georgia, or I've had them call from other parts of America. It's not so much they're interested in doing a TV series or anything like that, but they find me and they send an email and they say, "Hey, can we have a chat? I'm with such and such a production company," and we open up a Zoom chat, and I end up talking to them for 2 hours, and they just want to talk about the book. There's no TV show. And
Right.
they
I had something like that happen to me once.
Yeah, they say, one guy told me, he said, "Bruce, everyone in the business has read your book, but I don't think anyone will ever do a TV show because th they're afraid." And I went, "Yeah, that's kind of hard to believe, but um,
Yeah.
So you got Bradshaw, I believe they've sealed off completely. There's a big fence around it, and they say that it's I don't know, a nature preserve or something now, but it's guarded by the military. Skinwalker we all know about, right? Because they've had
Right.
I think they're going into season 4 of their TV show.
Also NIDS. I mean, it was famous because of NIDS.
Because of
NIDS.
what do you mean,
That
NIDS?
was the Bigelow thing where he had the defense
Oh,
contract.
yeah, 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 good old Bobby.
Good old
And
Bob.
yeah, we write a little bit about him in Stardust Ranch. He tried to buy Stardust Ranch, made 3 or 4 offers, and John was did when I wrote the book with John Edmonds, he had no hesitation about describing what it was like to deal with Bigelow. A very unflattering portrait. But I suppose it would be hard to be a billionaire and not become an asshole, really, when you think about it, right?
Yeah, I think most of them were.
Seems to be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Takes a certain personality type to accumulate that much cash.
absolutely, yeah. So Stardust is the story of John and Joyce Edmonds. I believe they bought the ranch in 1997, moved in, and it just got super weird right from the beginning. And they just ran the gamut of things. So there were, I believe it's the only place I know of where an actual gray has been photographed. Um,
Really?
Yeah, it's the Kerry Cassidy went out and did an interview with him, and a gray appeared in the interview. You can just see it peeking around the kitchen corner.
Well, that's wild.
It is. It is. There's also some other stuff there. There was a very bizarre story. There was a suicide there. Young man on his the day of his high school graduation committed suicide. His spirit was still in the house. They had that exorcised. Um, Many people believe there's an alien craft under the ranch. John used to get phone calls from pilots all the time telling him that anytime they flew over the ranch, they were getting this signal on the radio. Um, it's been investigated by or examined by almost everybody. I think the government's had a couple teams out there. Bigelow had a team out there. They usually spend about 2 weeks. They stay at a local hotel. And John used to have a condition that if he allowed them to study the ranch, he would be given a copy of the report. And he'd be given the reports, but they would be, 80% redacted, blacked out. And
Right.
yeah, it's got to be a little offensive if you're the property owner and I don't know
Well, I
what,
mean,
I don't
NIDS
know
was
why.
so, NIDS was so secretive. I mean, you do anything, they slap a non-disclosure on you. I mean, they didn't publish anything. I'm not surprised if it was NIDS, and you got something that was 80% redacted. I mean, that's just par for the course.
Yeah, yeah, and Bigelow is, and I don't know, maybe the closest thing in real life to Montgomery Burns from The Simpsons. He's just a really weird guy. And it was researched completely. Now, writing the book was a bit of a trip too. What happens when you enter into a book project with somebody like this, you you end up, I don't know how to lay words to it, but you kind of have this Vulcan mind meld. And a lot of the stuff that was going on at the ranch started to happen in some measure here in the Talamanca Mountains. So
Really?
we had a portal opening up in the main house, which is behind me here. It was about the size of a basketball, and you wouldn't know it was there unless you walked right through it. And it smelled like uh, cleaning disinfectants like you'd find in a school or a hospital, that heavy
Okay.
chemical smell,
Yeah,
coppery like blood.
that's
And
weird.
and you'd immediately have a mood alteration when you pass through it. And then a few times when it opened up, there were things moved around. Like there was one time my son was visiting and he was sitting on a sofa. It was a really well-built sofa. It takes a couple strong men to lift it, and the whole thing tilted. And he thought there was a small earthquake or something. And I was just sitting 10 feet away from him with my feet up on the desk. I said, no, there was no earthquake. That went on for about 4 or 5 weeks. I got really kind of freaked out. Now, this is the second kick at the can writing the book with John. I tried in 2012 when I still lived in Toronto, and I quit after 6 months. And the book just freaked me out. It's literally like I felt things crawling up the back of my neck all the time.
Really?
And then when I was up here in early 2019, he just popped into my head again. I hadn't spoken to him for about 7 years. The last thing I said to him was, I think I'm going to go build an earth bag house in Costa Rica. So I called him up and we started talking. He said, how's life? What are you up to now? I said, well, you remember that earth bag house? I built it. I live way up in the mountains in the rainforest. He said, that's incredible. And I said, you want to take another shot at the book? He said, I'd love to. I said, why don't you have a book? It's been 7 years. I mean, you've been on Ghost Hunters. I've seen you in the news. He got national news in 2017. I said, why don't you have a book yet? He said, Bruce, I've had 4 writers come in and they all did exactly what you did in 2012. They quit halfway through. And
Yeah.
it's just about working. So I started the book again up here in 2019, and then these portals started opening up. And I had this kind of like low level white noise in the back of my head. Very, very unsettling. And it reminded me of doing it and trying to write the book in 2012. And I was about to quit again. And then I woke up one Saturday morning with my wife, and there was a ball of light at the top of the ceiling in the bedroom. My wife took a picture of it. And we don't know what it was to this day. And all the negativity in the house just sort of disappeared. It was re
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really quite a remarkable experience. And then later on in 2022, this would be just before John Edmonds passed. He passed in February of 2022, but in early January, I was approached by a postdoctoral fellow at the Harvard Medical School who I guess was the research assistant for a field scientist who had a PhD in medical physics. I didn't even know such a thing existed.
Yeah, I sure didn't.
Yeah, medical physics. And they asked if they could speak to me. I said that it was about Stardust Ranch. So I set up a Zoom call. We spoke without John, and they wanted to convince me first, um, because from what they'd heard, they thought they would need some help getting John on board. John could be a little bit difficult to work with. He's a huge man, like just under 300 pounds. I often jokingly say his story is like E.T. meets the Hells Angels, and a little bit intimidating, you know.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, and so they were talking to me, and they asked me what was it like to work on the book, and I started telling them exactly what I'm telling you guys. And
Right.
they said, do you still have the picture? I said, I do. And they said, can we have it? I said, sure. And I emailed it to them. And they got back to me about 4 weeks later and they said, well, we can't tell you what this is, but we can tell you what it isn't. It isn't fluorescent light. It isn't incandescent light. It isn't candle light. It isn't any kind of light we know, but it is light. I said, yeah, thanks.
I was there.
Yeah. And so that was some of the stuff that that happened working on Stardust Ranch. And it was an absolute pleasure to get to know John Edmonds because he was just such an interesting fellow in so many ways. There's a lot of stuff that didn't come out in the book, which I speak about freely now. You gotta wonder if it was a combination of the ranch and John that brought everything in there. John
Okay.
John John was a first gen super soldier. And so he had a really, really interesting life. He'd been all over the world and he had this he was like just kind of a magnet for any kind of fourth dimensional nonsense you wanted to get into. I see you're using the continuity camera there on Mac, like on the iPhone, like
Yeah.
myself. I love them. Yeah, I love them.
They're good.
Yeah. And John, you could ask John anything, and he'd give you the best answer you ever heard in your life. John, what's the dog man? And he would go on for 30 minutes. And John, what's Bigfoot? And he would go on for 30 minutes. And
Right.
just a very interesting guy. So yeah, anything else you want to know about Stardust?
Well, that was exactly the thing that I was going to say, that it seems as if you start working on a project and for some reason it brings about, maybe it's because you concentrate on it and it brings it about, because you said a similar thing about another book that you were working on in
Yeah.
collaboration. And there were synchronicities that started happening, and everybody had the same dream. And um, it seems like that's been your experience. And you
Yes.
are practicing your journalism thing by reporting on these things that happen. Yet you were working on another book, and everybody started having the same dreams.
Yeah, well, that's the devil in us.
Uh,
I'm not sure you guys want to talk about that one, but I'm open to it if you are.
and then
Um,
the one with the Stardust Ranch, you said that you really didn't have an interest one way or the other until you moved and you started having experiences yourself. Or was when
yeah.
you started working on the book again, you started having the
Yeah,
experiences?
I had an orb over the house here in Costa Rica. And thank you. That's what made me start thinking about John again and John Edmonds and Stardust Ranch. Boy, where are you getting all this? Have I said this on my podcast or did I?
No, I
Oh,
just drawing it in.
I don't believe you. I did an interview with Clyde a couple years ago about Stardust. Um, yeah, so I've had a few extraterrestrial experiences myself. My first one was when I was about 8 years old, and it was with my brother, who was a year older than me, and that was just outside of Ottawa in cottage country called Constance Bay. And then I had another one when I was about 35 years old, 36 years old, and that was in Mississauga above my house. And after I finished The Light of Darkness with Robert Wiegand, I got a visit from a representative of a race called the Ligurians, and that was in meditation. And what happens in those situations is there's a stillness in your mind's eye, and then something just pops in. And generally, you know it's real when it pops in with more clarity than your physical eyes. And that's when you know it's really coming in. And I called a few people and I said, "What's going on here?" And they said, "Well, the intensity of the book, Light of Darkness, opened up a portal on the astral, and the Ligurians want to communicate with you because they're having some problems in their world, similar to the ones that you and Bob talked about in The Light of Darkness." So I closed that portal right away. I'm not a huge, I don't think a tremendous amount of benefit can come from interacting with extraterrestrials. No offense to Billy Meyer or Alex Collier or any of those people, but I think you're better off getting to know your true self in the yogic sense of the word or in the spiritual sense of the word. It's not that the extraterrestrials aren't real. They're real. Um, it's just that I think when you look at the history of their involvement with the human race, they very often end up doing as much damage and as good, no matter what their intent was. You know, that's my feeling about it.
That's interesting though, because that's that's not an opinion that you hear a lot of.
No,
I mean, typically, you get the Whitley Strieber thing where it starts out, in communion and they're scary and they're evil,
yeah.
and then by the secret school, they're helping humanity and providing all this guidance and
Yeah, I think old Whitley's been he's joined an astral cult. No
but
offense.
yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean. Most
Yeah.
people when they get that kind of extraterrestrial visitation, even the Unarians, right? That it's all about, they're here to help humanity and everything's great and it's all happy kittens and puppies. You don't, I mean, you hear the people that have the negative interactions, the Travis Waltons of the world, where they terrorized him and, pulled his eyeballs out and all that kind of stuff. But you very rarely hear somebody who actually resists it. It's like, look, guys, I really don't want to deal with you.
Well, I'll tell you the Ligurian story. So, popped into meditation and I called a friend of mine, in California, uh, v- experienced communicator with extraterrestrials and a highly evolved, clairvoyant. And
Okay.
he's the one who told me they were Ligurians. I didn't even recognize them. I've never seen a picture of them in a UFO book or anything. It
What
was
did they, what did they look like?
I don't like to describe them because they come back when you do that.
I
Okay?
understand. I
Yeah.
understand.
And and then he found the story so engaging that he called another friend. And this was a guy who had worked with the government and really knew a lot about this stuff, a remote viewer, the whole deal, that full psychic pedigree you get in in the DARPA undergraduate system, we'll call it. And
Yeah, sure.
they said, look, this was a Ligurian. This is very interesting. The Ligurians don't visit very many humans, and I said, how do I close the portal? And they said, just say, I want to close the portal. And I went, I want to close the portal. And this was about 4 weeks after we finished The Light of Darkness. It had just gone up on Amazon. And this is how perceptive Bob is my co-writer on that book. I called him up. Hey, Bob, how's it going? This is Robert Wagan. Oh, not too bad, Bruce. Yeah, we talked for about a minute, and then he just stops the conversation and he goes, did you just close a portal on the Ligurians? And I went, yeah, 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 like 4 hours
Wow.
ago. He goes, that guy was the smartest guy in his race. He wanted to tutor you. And I said, yeah, I'm not interested.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you get into this world, it's like it's really got legs. If you have no experience in it, it's very difficult to comprehend from a purely rational and intellectual perspective. You need a little bit of the interconnection, and just that one experience with the Ligurian was enough to show me how interconnected this psychic world is between
Oh yeah.
Bob and the guys I spoke with, and it's like everybody knew but me, you know?
No, I understand. I mean, I do a form of meditation on occasion based on the Gansfeld method, right? To induce, I use the white noise generator and the sensory deprivation to initiate the
Yeah.
entrance into the ether space, and you see all
Are
kinds
you
of crazy.
are you self-taught on that? Did you go to the Monroe Institute or anything?
No, I'm self-taught.
Oh, that's
I created a protocol for doing it.
oh, that's impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's very effective. I've taken many people into the ether space
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
And, I always tell people, I don't necessarily know who you're going to talk to, but you're going to talk to somebody. And in
Yeah.
my case, I have my own belief system of who I'm dealing with. And, but I understand when you say that you see things with a clarity that you cannot see with your own eyes.
Yeah.
It's like a crispness that you can't describe. Like normal life is fuzzy compared
Yeah.
to that. But
Yeah.
I've never met aliens. Spiritual things, ascended
Um,
masters, spirit guides, angelic presences, I've experienced all that. But
yeah.
I've never experienced aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's very interesting. So in my meditations now, I'm mainly focused on the energetic constructs of
Sure.
consciousness, just pure sound and pure light and varying frequencies and colorations, right up into the white light. And that sits above the psychic realms. But you got to go through all the psychic
Oh
stuff
yeah.
and experience all of that stuff. But when you get through the psychic stuff, you understand what the yogis are saying and the Buddhists and when we're going through this phase in the West, and I don't mean to sound chauvinistic or put down the West. I mean, there's some things we do phenomenally well, like technology, but
Sure.
consciousness is not really one of them, right?
No.
They've got this all mapped out in the East, and
And they have for thousands of years. I mean, it's not something
precisely.
that's new.
Yeah, precisely. And they talk about this stage you go through in the inner journey where these mental powers will come to you, the cities, and you're supposed to let go of them. But I look at the New Age movement and a lot of the stuff going on the Gaia network and everything, and they seem to be selling the accumulation of these mental powers, which are very anti-spiritual. And
Right.
this will give you more background as well on why I shut down the Ligurian. Now, curiously, I did about 6 months ago have my second experience with the Ligurians in a meditation, and they took me to their planet, and I was in this grand hall, and there was a whole procession, and it was quite affecting. And so I didn't break complete contact. You can't really.
No,
If you say
you
you want
can't.
to be left alone, they'll leave you
They'll leave
alone.
you alone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, I try to tell people that when they do things in the spiritual realm, I call it the ether space, but astral plane, I mean, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
For me, I call it the ether space because of the way that it is for me. And it's different for every person, but for me, it's a black void that I'm
yeah,
floating inside, and things appear inside the black void. It's
yeah,
like the black void is a container. And inside that container, I have some say on about how the container operates. That's
yeah,
why I exist inside the container because I can
yeah.
control it.
It absolutely blows me away that you've developed your own techniques. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
well, I've
that is some samurai sword making
oh no,
stuff.
no, no, it's not that big. I mean, I just kind of stumbled upon it.
Okay,
I decided to try different methods. I mean, I've done astral projection,
yeah,
which I found to be quite exciting,
yeah,
but at the same time, it's terrifying.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and I didn't like one of the things that I didn't like about the experience is that like many people who experience astral projection, I'm up in space flying around planets and whatever, but I could feel that tether
yeah,
and it's uncomfortable because it's like having a
yeah,
rope tied around your waist. I mean, you need it,
yeah,
but in the ether space, I mean, I can feel my body, but it's not like it's just integrated. There's an integratedness to it
yeah.
that I didn't have in astral projection.
So when you do your astral projection, it's with the silver cord and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. I go to the astral a bit differently, but that's another story. So any more you want to stay on the books? I think
Yeah, that's fine.
we're gonna
Yeah,
work
this
up
is book talk. You're on your
Yeah, but you know
book
what?
tour.
Look,
we're gonna work our way to the devil in us, but we'll wait for hour two because that one will freak you out more than anything.
well, the way we do this show is that we kind of have an idea of what we want to talk about, but
You might.
I do. I'm the planner, but which is weird because I don't like to plan stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But what I've found, it's like you get some very interesting people that start talking. What was it that Hoagland talked about?
But
It was like TV.
it was something new. But yeah, we allow things to happen.
Yeah, I mean Richard Hoagland,
We're not
Yeah,
strict.
I'm well
yeah,
aware.
so he comes on the show and we're talking about the moon and the arcologies and
Yeah.
these experiments, and then we got into some really trippy spiritual stuff that you
Yeah.
wouldn't expect from Richard Hoagland.
That's right.
Oh, I
Yeah,
would. I would actually. I don't think you see when you get into all this stuff, what you start to realize is outer space and inner space are really the same thing.
sure.
The old occult maxim, as above, so below, is extremely misleading. It's as without, so within, as within, so without.
Well, that is
Within
true.
you are without you.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's a bad translation. I can understand because I know Crowley. And
Okay.
for me personally, I'm no Thelemite, but for me personally, I've always found great solace in dealing with the secret chiefs because it's a construct that I can deal with, I can rationalize.
All right.
But to me personally, I see the universe as this self-healing system,
Yeah.
and the secret chiefs or the ascended masters or the Great White Brotherhood, if you're in a theosophy or whatever,
Yeah.
they're constructs, and
Yeah.
they're basically. I do believe that they were people that has achieved some kind of you know Buddhic level of integration into the universe,
What
but
was
they are
the
representatives of the
yeah.
universe. So you just call them by different names. I like the
Yeah.
Secret Chiefs. I like the number 93. I see 93s. I see balloons. It's all good for me.
Yeah.
But that is because that's the way the universe. Oh, I'll tell you an Akashic record story that'll blow your mind.
Please.
But it's because that's how it manifests to me in a way that I can rationalize. And I
Yeah.
think that who you're talking to is the same people I'm talking to. It's just it manifests in your own way.
Yeah.
That's my belief.
Absolutely. It's like two people can have an entity in their dream space,
Right.
and they wake up and the dreams at a detail level, the dreams are completely different, but you can adduce that it was the same entity in the dream.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just
So
manifestation.
I
there's a
I
Texan and an Irishman, and the Irishman swore he saw a leprechaun, and the Texan swore he saw a prairie dog.
yeah.
But they both saw something.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you would have to ask yourself what those two things in the various mythologies represent
Exactly.
yeah, to sort of,
Well, it's the that we're dipping in.
yeah,
Um,
True.
yeah. So, and I always found this interesting because I always question the idea of universal archetypes as Jung and Joe Campbell presented them to us because it hasn't been my experience. The archetype can be true at an energetic level, but the representation of the archetype is always different.
Right. I
Yeah,
think,
depends on the context you're coming from, though.
yes, I think that you're seeing it the way that you can rationalize. That's how I view it. When I go into the ether space and over the years I've really refined how to do it. I mean, I can get a lot done in 30 minutes.
yeah,
Right. I mean, I like the Secret Chief, so I set it to 33 minutes.
yeah.
And I induce myself, go in there for 33 minutes, do my thing, and I drop right out of it.
And then the little bell goes off. He's done.
No,
Takes it
that's
out of the oven.
well, there's a danger. If you don't set a timer, I found that I pop out of there in about 33, 35 minutes naturally. But if you don't set a timer, you can be in there for however long you're willing to have a trip.
Yeah.
And that I think is something that's ill-advised. I think you need to pop yourself out of it because you can become consumed by it.
Yeah.
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 It's a danger of that kind of stuff that you can become consumed by it.
Well, yeah, you do. You're absolutely right. You do have to Be very careful when you get into this stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
And you have to stay very grounded. Have you ever heard the story of Meher Baba, the 20th century Indian mystic?
I know of him. I mean, there are many stories about him.
But you know what
Which one?
his principal mission was?
No,
It was to awaken the masts.
I get that.
Yeah. So a mast for the listeners is um, a yogic or contemplative initiate in India who gets frozen, exactly as you just said. And
Right.
these guys could go into a kind of samadhi where they would sit under a tree for 10, 15 years, no food, no water, but they were lost. They had become extremely imbalanced. And Meher Baba drove around India for 4 or 5 years with a couple assistants and just intuitively knew where to go and awakened all the masts and brought them back to their bodies and back to the physical world.
That's the wig tappers.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, that's the Church of the Living Swing. If you go too far into the far gonosphere, and you're gonna flip your wig.
Yeah,
You got a wig tapper that comes around and makes sure you got it back on straight.
yeah. I think I've figured out who's Carson and who's McMahon in this duel.
Well, we usually have Rachel, not the replicant, but
Yeah, she's sick tonight. Those two team up.
But they're both complementary. They were both great figures.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah.
No, I like their interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting that you said that. I've thought about that on occasion. But did you really want to hear the Akashic Record story?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I wrote a book with what many people think was the best Akashic record reader alive, Andrew Bartzis, and then subsequently I reputationally decapitated him in 2 long articles on Substack because I figured out that he was killing people psychically.
Oh, that's not good. That's some KGB stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the
a lot,
KGB
and
did that.
well, I mean, it's a lot more common than you might imagine, actually.
Oh no, I believe you.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
believe you.
Have you,
I,
we're talking about all these things, extraterrestrials, the ether space. You've
sure.
mentioned that you've done a deep dive on Crowley.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever been the target of a very serious black magic attack by an advanced consciousness?
Yes, I am afraid I have.
Uh,
So I wrote a book with a guy by the name of Alan Greenfield. Alan Greenfield is my spiritual mentor, and he has taught me so much.
did does he pop up in that YouTube documentary series?
Hellier.
Yeah.
That's what
Hellier, a lot of it is based
on
on
his
his,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, his
Okay,
stuff that
I gotta say, just at a gut and third eye level, I find that guy super creepy. He's got that finger up the ass Kabbalah energy all
no,
over him.
no. He's actually a very grounded guy who's really all about the happiness.
Yeah, don't let that Hawaiian shirt fool you.
All right,
No.
all right. I mean, come on.
But
He
but he,
just
yeah, no,
just looks like he hangs out at Chuck E. Cheese and photographs kids.
no, not at all, not at all. He
Okay,
doesn't leave his house.
all right.
But and he doesn't photograph anybody. But he's a super nice guy, super sweet guy. We've had him on the show many times. He's fascinating.
Yeah.
And from a
Oh
magical
God,
brute.
I apologize, Mr. Greenfield. But
It's okay.
yeah,
Maybe I'll introduce you guys and
yeah,
you can
yeah,
see.
yeah.
Judge for yourself.
All right, all right.
But
That was a really well done series, Hellier.
Yes.
oh yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Those
And the
we
thing
by
go
the
ahead.
way, we have and I've interacted with them up here. We have Duende up here as well, which are what they call goblins in Central America.
Oh sure.
Yeah, they're all through the
Sure.
mountains. There's a huge cave system back there in the Talamancas.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
You
they
know, I mean, he
pop.
gets in the shaver thing and how a lot of there are massive cave systems that are interconnected all over the world. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but but yeah, no, I one thing that's interesting before I tell you the Akashic record thing, one of the things oh yeah, you wanted to know about the energetic attack. So Alan wrote a book called The Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts, where he uses the Knack cipher
Yeah.
out of the Book of the Law he used it in the context of UFOs, that he started putting in UFO names instead of, Thelemite stuff. And he started
Yeah.
to get some really interesting results. And I actually, after the Akashic record thing, I actually realized, going through the ether thing, I realized that within the Knack cipher number 6, there is a subcipher,
Yeah.
and that subcipher is actually based on music,
Yeah.
and it's a skip cipher. So I built a program to actually use that subcipher, and you actually get far better. I haven't used it in a long time, but you actually get far better results.
Yeah.
But anyway, he wrote a book called The Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts, and in Hellier, they're fascinated by this guy Terry Wrist that he knew.
That was
And then,
the tunnel rat, right?
yeah, that's the Tunnel Rat.
Yeah.
And I actually, not only has Alan been accused of being Terry Wrist, I've actually been accused of being Terry Wrist, which is hilarious because, yeah, I was like a kid when he met him.
Yeah, I
But
believe the Vietnam War ended in 1972. I can't really see how you'd be a tunnel rat.
well, the functional part of it, but I was born in 75 when they were evacuating people off the top of the building with helicopters and pushing helicopters and planes off of aircraft carriers. But there's no way. But I have a whole thing about, I think that I actually lived a lifetime where I died in Vietnam. But anyway, then he wrote a book called The Secret Rituals of the Men in Black, which was an extension. And it was
Now,
supposed to be
what?
huh?
I don't mean to keep stopping you, but
No, it's fine.
I got to say, guys, this has got to be one of the most stimulating conversations I've had in 3 months. I mean,
Oh, wow.
it's like Bob and I up on the front balcony when he comes over for a 3-month visit. We'll go on for 6 hours, and
Yeah.
Well, the howler monkeys get rather repetitive. So
Well, so, and I deeply appreciate that.
So
That comment. Thank
what I
you.
wanted to say briefly was
Yeah.
there was a chapter in the book, The Light of Darkness, where we talked about the Pleiadians, and
Oh,
in deference to the accursed journalism degree I got, I felt it was mandatory that I notify them that this would be in the book. I mean,
sure.
the book is sold under 1,500 copies. It's not like I'm,
On fire.
Simon and Schuster calling a 4-term congressman,
Yeah, but that's pretty good for an independently published book.
Well, like I said, I know my trade, right? And
Sure.
so I reached out to Michael Horn, and because Bob had spent a couple months over in Switzerland with them, and
Yeah.
he doesn't have an extremely anything positive really to say about them. And I'm not a huge Palladian fan myself, nor am
Yeah,
I
me
a
neither.
huge Nordic fan. I don't think
I
they're
have a whole
really.
theory about
Yeah, I
that.
mean, if you ever meet anyone who's a Nordic contactee, just being around them for 5 minutes, you feel like you've just left a 2-hour European death metal concert,
I actually
right?
I have a theory about them. I wrote a book and I have a theory about the Nordics. But anyway, so
And the Palladians are really completely in line with the Georgia Guidestones. They think we should be capped at 500 million people,
oh yeah. Well,
you know.
before they were blown up. So
So
the
so
third, oh, go ahead.
so I called Michael Horn.
Yes.
He said, "Can I read the chapter?" I said, "Sure, I'll send you the draft we have now." And the very next day, I'm at my desk. It's in the main house. And I feel one of the creepiest feelings I've had writing this book, and this was a creepy book. I went into what I call the world of darkness for 3 days. I was a zombie.
Okay.
And this was worse than anything I felt writing Stardust Ranch.
Sure.
It was like something was just literally touching the fear nerve in my brain, or the fear neurons in my brain.
Yeah.
And I had to force myself to breathe through my nose. And I've been meditating for
I,
40 years.
I get it. I get it.
Lo and behold, 15 minutes later, the Skype rings. It's Bob. He goes, "Hey, buddy, we're a couple chapters out from this book, and I said, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm really freaked out. He goes, oh yeah, there's a man in black on the Astral on the outside on the balcony looking at you through the window. He said, don't go out for about 30 minutes. I said, well, how do you know he'll leave in 30 minutes? He goes, they get bored easy. And so um that's my man in black story. They have a horrible vibration.
Oh, they do.
And
They do.
then if you've read Stardust Ranch, there's the chapter I did with Dr. Brandy Howe, who went to try and clean out the ranch, and she had been hired and paid to do this by Cynthia Crawford, who alleged to be the first alien-human hybrid
Right.
created by the OSS in 1947. And she went out and did it with what she called two Syrian walk-ins, two humans that had Syrians in them. And after this encounter at Stardust Ranch, they all got visited by the men in black. One of the Syrian walk-ins was institutionalized, and the other one disappeared and went underground with his family. And the last I heard, Dr. Brandy Howe is homeless on the streets of Portland now. And she used to had a successful business in Arizona. You can't really fool around with the men in black.
Well,
But I don't.
okay.
They're some kind of hybridization, and there's more, and some of them are purely astral. And John used to
Yes.
talk. Yeah.
So hold on.
Now
I gotta tell you.
this would be the litmus test
Okay.
on whether your buddy Greenfield is for real and is here to help the human race,
Yes.
or he's a Kabbalistic shill. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So the third book was supposed to be about the Secret Chiefs,
Okay.
but he never wrote it. And so one day we were talking, and it was like, we should, the way the world is, the way the people are acting in the world and the negativity in the world, we really need to write a book about the Black Lodge.
Yeah.
And expose what they are and what they do and how they do it. So we wrote a book called The Secrets of the Black Lodge Revealed.
Yeah. I'll bet you David Lynch read that.
I sent him a copy.
Man,
So-
we're like psychic Siamese twins, you and I.
He never contacted me though.
Okay.
But I did cry when he died. So, and I do have a bunch of Twin Peaks stuff. I actually, I'll tell you off air sometime a story about a writer who read my book and used it in a TV show. But anyway, so I write the book with Alan. He writes his parts. I write my parts. And the psychic bombardment and the negative bombardment in my life, people almost died. I mean, everything that could go wrong in my life went wrong in my life.
Yeah.
Just constant negative bombardment.
Yeah.
And it was horrible.
Yeah.
And it went on and on. And no matter what I did, I could slow it down. I couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
And, he could stop it, but he couldn't sustain it. And I tried it, all kinds of stuff.
What does that mean? For who is he? Who's the pronoun? Okay.
Alan,
He could stop it, but not sustain the cessation of it.
correct. It was that severe. And, it's not so bad now.
How long ago?
Oh, it probably stopped. It probably mostly stopped a couple months ago.
Wow, that's intense. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
bad. It was
Yeah.
bad. And so, the initial publication,
I'm longer than a Datura trip. Huh?
oh, it lasted like 2 years. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
the
how
initial
do you cope?
will,
Okay.
asking, I mean, there are times when it would get really bad. And,
I find it at times like that, the really mechanistic practices are helpful, like mantra or beads, stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, because it organizes your mind. I mean, baking,
Yeah.
because it's an atomic act. I mean, as a
Yeah.
technical writer, you'll understand what atomic means.
Yeah.
I'm an engineer. It's an atomic act.
What kind?
I like to bake desserts.
No. What kind of engineer?
Oh, I would be classified as a software engineer, but I don't code. I build
That's
infrastructure.
that's an oxymoron, my friend.
I'm a
And
like a
I
DevOps
realize as a
engineer.
technical writer who's the bastard offspring of quality assurance, we're the first rung in the R&D department. And
Yeah, no, I did a lot of R&D,
yeah.
but no, I'm an infrastructure engineer basically,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I'm now a senior solutions architect. But I was an architect for a long time
Okay. Yeah.
and an SME. But anyway, so how I dealt with it. The people around me that love me, loved on me, and the secret chiefs tried to shield me, and they did. I mean, when it got real bad, there's a kind of calmness and a grace that you get,
Yep.
and it came from them by way
Yeah.
of the universe. And eventually it lightened up, and I got it under control. But it
Yeah.
it persisted up until probably a couple months ago. It lessened and lessened because
Did
the
it go
amount of
beyond
energy.
did it go beyond psychic? Did you ever get poked or prodded in your sleep or anything?
No, it was
Any
just psychic bombardment. I mean,
any
people around me did.
any for real voice to skull?
No, no,
Okay.
I've never experienced that,
So it's
but
basically just
energetic.
bad mood and that
Bad
sort.
mojo, man. People around me almost dying multiple times. I mean, it was just terrible.
Well, I've had a death in every at least one death and serious injuries in the circle around all four books I've written since 2019.
Oh yeah, no, no, the Black Lodge is legit.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I don't
and
know
what?
if I'm not saying it's them that's attacking me, but I've got a rep out there now. If you want to die young, write a book with Bruce McDonald,
Well,
and I ask my friends, how is it that I do this and I'm fine? And they go, well, we can't really tell you, but you're good. Nothing will bother you. And
yeah.
I'm okay with that ignorance. I don't
Oh
need to
no, I
turn
need to
out.
know.
No, okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
The details will keep you from the gates
But
of the palace of wisdom,
but for me, a lot of the really bad stuff happened to people around me, not to me.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard to protect them. You know, but
Yeah.
yeah. So that's I wrote a book about the Black Lodge. I will never write another book about the Black Lodge. I mean, I
Okay.
talked about the Fraternus Saturni, the Brotherhood of Saturn. I
Yeah.
talked about the Devil's Schools. I mean,
Now,
we went all the way down. The
just
numerical system they use, everything, rituals.
just to finally clarify this curiosity for me,
Sure.
that whack job Klingon outfit that Klaus Schwab allowed himself, the black with the shoulders, that he allowed himself to be photographed in, that is the uniform of the priest of Saturn, right?
As far as I understand it,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
I
Just so
mean,
pe
there's not a lot written about them. But one of the things that I was able to find
A
was,
fashion statement.
yeah.
well, one of the things that I found that was more interesting than that even was basically it was a book that it was pages from a guy's journal who was doing the various practices, and with the sigils and schematics of the different demons that he was interfacing with,
Yeah.
and how it's pretty lewd. It's pretty bad. And I put the was it the Clavius Infernum in it? I
Yeah.
mean, I tried, and Alan tried, we tried to make it as exhaustive as possible
Yeah.
because that's only going to get done once.
So the
I don't
devil,
have the energy to do it again.
yeah, so the Devil and Us, a memoir of you and me, is in many ways a defense of the demonic legion and Satan and how they've been misinterpreted. And
Oh yeah.
my muse for the entire book was a 9-foot demon I named Creeper.
Okay.
And everybody in my immediate circle dreamed with him. Went out about 12 people, and it didn't matter the geographic distance. And they all said the same thing. They knew it was a demon in the dream, but they weren't afraid. And as I understand it, I have become, if it's even possible, endeared by these people or beings. And
Wow.
this again was set up by Bob, and who is really is an incredible. The Light of Darkness is an incredible story. Even more incredible is what Bob's done in the 5 years since we finished the book. But literally, you know what? I'll see if I can see if he'll do an interview with you guys sometime,
That'd
and
be
we'll
awesome.
come on
Absolutely.
together because it's very interesting. You got to be careful what you ask because he can't give out any classified information or
That I
anything.
understand.
But there was a point in his life where he took orders directly from Bush Senior and John McCain,
Okay.
and popped around in places like the Philippines and stuff like that, right?
At one point, I had a security clearance, so I understand. I don't ask
Yeah,
those questions. I don't want to know.
yeah,
I really
yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Keep it to
literally,
yourself.
the most lit up human being I've ever met in my life in terms of uh, clairvoyance and psychic ability. You'll never meet anyone even close. He's off the charts, off the charts.
Well, I'm fascinated to hear about this book, because
Well,
you know,
Bob,
I
Bob
mean, being
had,
endured by a demon,
yeah.
that's some dangerous stuff.
Well, look, I'll tell you, demons are not what we think they are.
Okay.
Okay, so let me begin by asking you, what do you think a demon is?
Well, I mean, in my own,
What do you think Satan is? The leader of the demonic legions.
well, there's a difference between Lucifer and Satan, right?
I am aware, and I didn't ask about Lucifer. We can get to that later, but I'm asking
Sure.
about Satan now. Yeah.
To me, the way that I have experienced it is that it is a malignant force
Yeah.
of darkness that no good comes from it. And the minions below him, the different layers and levels,
Yeah.
Lucifuge, Rophakal, or Leviathan, or whoever, whichever one you want to go down. A lot of people who deal with the sigil magic and doing that stuff, they try to summon these entities, and these entities represent manifestations of
Yeah.
darkness and evil.
Well, there's your first problem right there.
Okay.
You're summoning them.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh
You don't.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
gonna trick you and take control.
Yeah, but the way to look at demons is you want to look at them as the cleanup crew in the cosmic system, right? Just like rats, cockroaches, and maggots on the physical plane,
Okay.
which generally will are often associated with demons.
Sure.
Um, and really, when you look at the way they're captured in film and stuff, and the way they try to frighten us, it's just tapping into our unconscious fear of death. But what I learned writing,
A bluff charge.
did you say a bluff charge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means.
Well, a animal like a gorilla,
Oh
is
no,
actually,
they're not bluffing. Yeah. They're not
No.
the demons aren't bluffing. They
No.
will if you
They
run a
do what they tell you. They'll tell you what they're gonna do, and then they
yeah.
do it. Yeah.
If
No, they're
you
very upfront about it.
if you come into their domain or their dominion under contract, meaning that you've brought them and you've become an assignment for them. For the first thing you need to understand, and this is the critical aspect, is that there was no rebellion, there was no fall. It's a bunch of horse shit. Okay, we've been misled for 3,000 years by people who stole material from a previous epoch, and it's just a shit show. And Satan is a divine being. Okay, you can look upon him as the angel of the earth. He's a divine being, and he's not in an antagonistic relationship with God. That's complete bullshit. The demons are a type of angel who try to deal with events in the human system that can't be dealt with any other way. kind of like an off the books task force in the LA Police Department. But they're
Which
always
is innately not a good thing. I mean, if you're an off the books
it
task
depend
force,
it
there's some
depends.
extrajudicial activities involved. So
Maybe you caught a few loose threads in my metaphor. That's true. And I'm a big fan of accurate metaphors because a metaphor should always translate to a literal. But you do understand what I'm trying to say, right? I can't think of another metaphor right now. Um, so the demons have a job to do. You want to stay out of their way. You never want to invoke them. They were brought into my life in a non-confrontational way because they wanted this story told, The Devil in Us. And they wanted their case made. And that case is the state of the world is not because of demons right now. We live in a world now where human beings are probably worse than demons. It's just gotten so bad now. And what has infected the human beings is not part of the original spiritual continuum and cosmology that was the inception of this realm, the earth realm. It's something else. And it has to do with what human beings have gotten into, first magically and then scientifically. And it's got nothing to do, and there are things in our psychosphere now far worse than demons. And there are human beings who think they can cooperate with these kinds of beings, and they cannot.
no,
So,
you cannot.
Creeper, I called him Creeper. I don't even like to say his name because he pops in. And
That's how it
um,
works.
yeah, and he basically gave me the book mainly in lucid nighttime dreaming for 3 months. And and
Sure.
and it was a bit freaky. He took me to some of the underground bases and I saw things I'm sorry I saw. And I can tell you that a lot of this stuff you hear about going back to the mid 90s, your Phil Schneider and stuff like that,
Sure.
it's as bad or worse. Okay. So I appreciate the Black Lodge and everything, but, my focus is the world. Not to be too Hebraic about it, but my focus is the level of negativity physically present in this world now is
Sure.
unbelievable.
It is.
Unbelievable.
Amen.
It is.
Okay. And it needs to be cleaned up.
It does.
And um so Creeper hung around for about 6 months and we kind of became friends. Have you ever seen a demon?
Have I?
Yeah.
No, but
Would you like to know what they look like?
I've
They can
I've
shape.
I've experienced them, but I mean I probably have because they can change their forms.
Yes.
But I know I've been in their presence. I didn't see them, but I could feel it.
Yeah. Well, pretty much everything operating on the astral can change its form, but
Sure.
they have a principal form when they're being themselves. And it's really quite something.
Okay.
They generally stand about 9 feet tall. They're very slender, very slender. They have a white chalk on their faces. They like to Creeper wore one of those sort of bowls over his head, like death in Ingmar Bergman's Seventh Seal.
Okay.
And they'll often have like a red lipstick on. And the closest thing I can say is they look like clowns. And I will say the closest depiction I've seen to what a demon actually looks like, minus the hair and the suit, is Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. Okay?
Okay.
That's what they look like. They actually look like clowns. And when I saw
I
Creep,
think clowns are demonic, so
well, when I
go on. No,
well,
I mean I hate clowns, so
well,
I get it.
after
Hey,
I
I'm a Ringling Brothers
Oh,
graduate.
clowns. Ugh.
after I finished the book,
Okay.
Creeper went on his way, and I was so fascinated by his appearance. I said, "Is this for real?" And I will just say to you and your listeners, I won't give a long parlay about it tonight, but do a deep dive into the history of clowns, how they came out into Western culture, and who brought them out.
Okay,
And
fair enough.
and that's the demonic appearance in their pure form. Okay.
You realize, clown, is called, dell'arte, the art.
Okay. So
That's what clowning is called.
I um I ha I have to ask permission here for something.
No problem. And I do have a question when you're done.
Okay, I can tell the story in a general way.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't, we have FCC standards. We're on
Yes.
terrestrial radio.
Oh, are you? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to have the experience of meeting a demon in the dream state, just ask and I'll ask and it will be non-frightening. I know this sounds weird and antithetical to all the theology out there right now, but when you really think about it, isn't this just another chapter in the grand inversion? Isn't this what we're going through now, is turning everything 180 degrees to get it right side up? What did this? I don't know. I could guess, but I could postulate, but I don't know for sure. But
Well,
we're in a
I
tremendous inversion right now, and one of those
yeah.
inversions is the reputation that the demons have been given. And I can tell you that the Abrahamic religions have been a control system since their inception.
Well, I mean, this
they're ba-
predates that, though. I mean, you can go back to
that is true, as I
yes.
said, but but like nobody who has a demon come into their life, unless you're paired with demons to write a book and you're cooperating, nobody who has a demon come into their life is going to have a positive story to tell you about it.
Absolutely.
They're
Because it's not positive.
No, I mean you can't fight with them. I mean, they're unbelievably powerful, right?
Yes.
Um,
And I do believe they occupy a space, that there has to be a balance between good and evil.
yeah.
And I believe they occupy the evil space.
Yes,
I know it's Jungian and
absolutely.
but
Yeah.
it's there has to be evil for there to be good. And the demons,
But
wherever they came from, occupy that space.
If you were a taxpayer in LA County with a 4-bedroom bungalow and 2 kids, wouldn't you secretly be glad that off the books task force exists?
I'm the wrong person to ask about that, because no, I actually would not.
All right.
I mean, I get where you're going with it, but
Okay.
you know, extrajudicial activities, I
It's
think,
all right. Again, you're just, it's a bad metaphor. And
no, but I understand what you're trying to say.
I also,
you want the cleanup squad.
I
get
know
it,
where
but
you're coming from. I spent 2 years writing a true crime nonfiction book in association with the Association of Defense of the Wrongfully Convicted.
so you understand.
Oh, I understand the justice system. When I finished that book, but actually, when I finished it, I actually had more respect for homicide detectives for how unbelievably difficult their job is psychologically and spiritually. It's my hat's off
I know
to it.
I know somebody who had to investigate homicide. A couple people who had to investigate homicides, and they're
Yeah.
bad.
So yeah, so I mean,
I get the cleanup crew metaphor. Like, I understand what you're trying to say, and
Yeah.
it makes sense in the construct that you need evil to have good. I get that, but I don't. And I had a conversation once with
no, that's not what I'm
Michael
saying.
Aquino. Go ahead.
Matt, I will say this about Michael, okay? In all neutrality, master of his craft.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But what I was going to get to is that, well known for manipulating the situation.
Yeah.
That he was a master at it. I mean, he was a psychological warfare guy.
Yeah.
And you could tell.
Yeah.
And the Temple of Set, it's this self-absorbed, selfish kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the thing that I knew when I interacted with Aquino, and he actually told me some very interesting stuff that I have not looked into more, that I really owe it to myself to look into.
Yeah.
But the thing about someone like him is that he will lie to you. He will lie to you to your face every day, every hour, every minute, if it benefits him. If it doesn't benefit him, he will not lie to you, because it's too much energy.
So
Yeah.
the questions and the interaction that I had with him, he was completely truthful and honest with me because he didn't need to lie to me because there was no point.
Okay, good.
But to me, that is the fundamentally, if you're interfacing a demon, you're they will lie to you to to get advantage
Oh,
every time.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
and
Yeah.
their motives are not good. They're not
Well,
good motives.
like I said, if they come into your life, ha- ha- there, it's very difficult to quantify what I'm about to say next, and I can only say that I believe it. To my own knowledge, I know it, but there's no way I can. Non-transferable knowledge must be characterized as a belief when speaking in public. Let me put it that way.
Sure.
If a demon comes into your life, you deserve it. There are no errors. There are no wrongful convictions at that level of application of force to justice or force to equity, equitizing a situation. There's no, and let me tell you, there are worse places than hell. There are worse
I believe
places.
that too.
Okay. So if you go to hell, you're still in the game. They're trying to remediate you. And it's not permanent like um, these Abrahamic systems have taught us.
Oh, even those have ways out of
Yeah.
hell.
Well, no, it's
Right.
a remediation period. It's to work off karma that would be
Right.
too stressful for the physical realm to deal with, right?
Mhm.
So if the demons come into your life, whether you understand why or not, you deserve it. Okay? And this is why there's such antipathy toward the exorcists, because they're interfering in divine work.
I don't know. I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that, though. I mean, there are plenty of cases where dem demonic activity took place where there really, I don't think was justified.
Be specific. Give me an example.
Well, sure. So, I mean, the original story of and I do want to ask you a question, but the original story of The Exorcist,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't a little girl, it was a little boy.
Yeah, I'm aware. The hospital
So,
in, was it Baltimore?
yeah, I believe it was in Baltimore.
And
So,
they had to close down the whole fifth floor, right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
how would a little boy, and there are plenty of,
In my case, it was always the third floor.
So
how do you justify a demonic possession of a child? What has that child done that would justify demonic possession?
well,
And he wasn't the
I,
only one.
I'm gonna give you a double E word that isn't electrical engineer. It's epigenetic equity.
Okay. Define it.
It's because of what his ancestors did.
You know, I have trouble buying into that. I mean,
Okay.
you're talking about my ancestors. My ancestors were assholes, but that doesn't mean that I'm an asshole and that I should have demonic presence in my life
Well,
because I did not do anything.
did
So
you live a life different than your ancestors?
yes,
Did you become consciously aware of what they did
yes,
and morally and ethically and spiritually reject it?
yes.
Was it
Okay.
adult onset?
No.
That's
But
McMahon's best
you know,
line of the night.
That's I believe my
I'm telling
and
you
I
what
do have a question about it.
I'm
But
telling you what I learned dealing directly with these beings. They're not
yeah, but
entities, they're
you're
beings.
also assuming that what Creeper told you was entirely accurate and demons are
It wasn't just Creeper, and
any of them.
let's just say there was a physically present board of editors that went over every part of the book.
Yeah, but I mean you have to trust that they if they were demonic in nature that they were giving you the truth. I mean, so I have a question.
So
Okay.
I'll make a prediction on your show.
Okay.
I bet
And
you
you
that
understand why I
Chris
disagree.
Wells speaks.
I bet you I'll bet you right now that before 2030 the Sanhedrin admits that Satan is a divine being.
Okay, I'll take you on that bet.
$1.
You heard it here first, folks.
The Sanhedrin.
A
Oh,
dollar
okay.
or 500
I'll
Costa
do-
Rica colones.
I'll bet you $1. That's
You got,
okay.
you got yourself, if you win that bet, you got yourself a free soda pop if you come here and visit me.
Sounds good.
What
Okay.
brand
So
of soda
It,
do they have
it,
over
They
there?
have
it
all
will,
kinds.
it will come out.
Banana?
It's starting to come out now in the public facing Catholic priests on YouTube who do the exorcisms. They're actually starting to admit it, but sideways.
Okay.
All right. And so they're saying things like,
Because I talked to an exorcist,
well,
a real Catholic trained exorcist, and the stories that guy will tell you are horrific. Absolutely horrific.
yeah, and did I at any point say
This is interesting.
it was pleasant to have a demon come into your life?
No, you did not. But
what did I say? There's always a reason for it. It's not random.
I know, but I can't, as a human being, I can't buy into multi-generational suffering. I think that each individual soul is judged on its own merit.
No, we
So-
taste the bitter fruit of our parents. So I
Well,
work
that's-
many
hold on,
years
hold on,
in
hold on,
that's
psychiatric
psychology.
ward.
That's
Hold on a
psychology.
sec.
This is great. It says, hold on.
I think we've arrived at what I would call a theological dispute here. Okay.
Yes, yeah, and it's fascinating. I will
And
tell you.
and
And I do have a question
me,
that I want to ask you.
but before that, allow me to counter.
Sure.
So I would characterize consciousness as occupying three states:
Okay.
material, chemical, and transcendent.
Okay.
Material is what we're physically talking to each other, emitting
Sure.
sound waves with our vocal cords. We
Right.
all can. That's an iPhone. You'd agree it was an iPhone if you saw it. There's my continuity camera. Okay.
Right. I'm on a Mac Pro.
Chemical-
Continuity camera.
Chemical consciousness is about 95% of all the public-facing spiritual content in the world now. Okay. So Judaism is a chemical religion. It revolves around the spilling of blood. Blood is a chemical process. Christianity is a chemical religion. Even if it's only an effigy, they're consuming the body and blood of
Through transmutation.
Yes. Okay. And they're also doing the blood rituals at the Vatican as well. Okay.
Sure.
Ayahuasca is chemical consciousness. It can pop you out of your body.
DMT.
Yeah.
You can go on. I get it.
The practice you've developed to go into the ether space is chemical.
Okay.
Okay. And transcendent is beyond all of that.
Right.
Okay. Transcendent consciousness is what you get into when you really start to surrender, give up the siddhis, give up the occult curiosities. Now, all of these demonic possessions take place within the chemical consciousness, right?
Okay.
Which
Yeah,
so
I mean,
chemical is basically a fusion of the astral and the physical, and a little bit of the causal as well, but not much. But it's mainly the astral and the physical. Okay.
Okay.
I would say that your friend Greenfield is a master of chemical consciousness.
In your description, that would probably be the case.
Any physical tool used to deduce something non-physical is part of chemical consciousness, because the brain is chemical as well. So if you're using sigils, that's chemical consciousness.
Sure. No, I get it.
Okay. So transcendent is something completely different. Okay.
Yeah. No,
completely different.
Right.
And so the demonic possessions take place within the chemical realm. And I am telling you, and you can choose to reject what I'm telling you.
I find it fascinating.
It is foolproof, and there is no error in the system of possession, because it's all divinely guided, and it's all done with the permission of God. And the Catholic priests are starting to say this out loud now. All possessions are done with the permission of God. They weren't saying that 5 years ago. They're saying it now.
I'm going to look that one up.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. So in your, and I do believe that discourse is
important.
Yeah.
And I think that you don't have to agree, but the discussion of it is illuminating, right? Because whether I agree with you or not, the discussion is enlightening in and of its very nature.
Yeah.
So in this demonic construct that you've created, well,
Yeah.
that was given to you, right?
Yeah.
You didn't create it. I mean, it was
Yeah.
passed on to you from, I'll not say his name, but from an entity that communicated with you directly.
Yeah.
Um,
I basically hung out at my house for 6 or 7 months.
yeah, I would find that utterly
Yeah, I mean,
terrifying.
you know what it's like to wake up and get a call from Arkansas. Hey, Bruce, had a dream with a demon last night. Well,
Oh, it's
why are you calling me? Well, you're the only
yeah.
person I could think of to talk to about this. Well, it's because of a book I'm writing, and we have a psychic connection, and it mapped out all the people in my
Oh,
life.
Hellier did that. Everybody
Yeah.
sees balloons now
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's Hellier is fundamentally a working. I
Yeah.
don't know what it's for, but it is a magical working.
Yeah.
So where did the succubi fit into this picture?
The female,
Succubi. Yeah.
the female seductress of dreams.
Correct.
I
I
don't
always
know.
comes back to this with all love.
I don't know.
No.
I don't
It's a
know.
good question.
I don't know. I don't know enough about the succubi. I've never researched into it. Like I said, I pass through these books and I let them go. I'm not a
No,
UFO.
and
I'm
that
not a
is-
UFO guy. I'm not a
But
demon
that's the mark of
guy.
a true writer.
Yeah,
Is to research it, write it, and release it. That is a true writer.
but every book has been physical, chemical, and transcendent. Every book has
I get it.
transformed my life. You know, and by the way, I'm a published literary writer. I got 5-star reviews in Canada. I wanted to
That's
be the next.
awesome.
I wanted to be the next Cormac McCarthy, and I got
Oh, I love
dragged.
Cormac McCarthy.
Oh my God, is Blood Meridian not the best book you've ever read in your life?
Him and J.G. Ballard are like my favorites.
Yeah,
Noah Ballard too.
I'll tell you a McCarthy story off air sometime, but
Sounds good.
yeah.
But you understand my reticence because
Yeah, that's
On
fine.
one hand,
That's
I do
fine.
understand.
I could ask Creeper to prove it to you, but I don't want to
No, that's
invade.
okay.
I don't want to invade your free will space.
No,
You'd have to consent to that.
I will not.
Okay, well there you
I mean,
go.
the reason that one of the reasons because I do believe that a lot of my opinions are based on experiential,
I
you know,
agree.
and I think that, you know, you do things you write about things that are abstract, not you, but as a
But
writer.
but I know what you're getting at now. We're still talking about demons. You're saying a lot of your opinions are experiential.
Right.
I'm going to tell you straight up, Olaf. You were bothering the demons and you got spanked. Leave them alone. You wouldn't go and poke maggots in a pile of dung,
Oh yeah,
would
no,
you?
I leave them alone.
Yeah, we should
I
not
don't do
be
Goetia.
we should
Don't
not be
touch it.
we should not be bothering them.
Goetia
Okay.
is dangerous because you are summoning them
Yeah.
and you are attempting to control them and you are entering into a pact with them. And if you
Yeah.
enter into a pact with them, they will fool you and they will control you.
Yeah, you can't outthink them. You can't.
No,
You
you
can't.
cannot.
If they want to do something horrible to you, they're going
They
to do
will.
so. Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
10 times worse than fooling around even with the Black Lodge. You know, they're very, very powerful. But
Oh yes. No, they're
and
extremely powerful.
and I grew to have a tremendous respect for them and a more well-formed and mature understanding of the cosmology we live within.
Sure.
Okay.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
But and I do I do understand what you're saying that if they mess with you, it's because you provoked them. And in my cosmology, you know, they represent the balance that in order to have the good, you must have the evil because they must conflict. Because within every human is evil. Just
Yeah.
there's evil and there's good. It's how you choose to live your life.
Yeah,
It's the
100%.
decisions that you make.
100%. Yeah, I totally
And I
agree.
think I think I don't buy into multi-generational infestation or possession or punishment, but I do believe that
Oh, come on, man.
no,
How could
no.
how,
It's like the Egyptian notion
Most
of being, well,
what about
if you're a judge,
what about the voluntary multi-generational infestation? The Masons, the dark
that's
Kabbalists.
different because it's voluntary.
Yes, but these curses carry on to the descendants. They have to be broken.
Yes, but in a lot of those cases, the descendants are conditioned to accept it.
Yeah, but look,
I mean, if you have a coven that is of a dark nature,
yeah,
right?
well,
The new people that come into the coven are trained. The
yeah,
children of the coven are trained.
yeah.
I mean, you see this in a lot of mystery school stuff that they attempt. I never tried to get my children to believe anything that I believed. I think it's important they believe their own stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do try to condition their offspring to follow whatever path they're on. And the left-handed path is the dark path. But I get
100%, yeah.
yeah, and I get partially what you're saying is that I think at some level what you're saying,
Just to be clear, I'm not on a left-hand path. I'm
no,
on
it
a
doesn't seem, that's why it's
no, I'm on
surprising.
a trans. Yeah,
You're on a transcendent
I
path
just,
and then you go down this path. I'm like, well, okay.
I honestly believe.
I see why you left it for the second hour.
Yeah,
You warned me.
I honestly believe that I have become some kind of cosmic reporter where and
I get that.
these assignments are coming from somewhere else.
Well, Philip
But
K. Dick believed that it came from Valis,
the
right? It's the same concept.
only science fiction writer I've ever read is Dick. Okay.
And
And
you probably understand at a cosmic level what he experienced.
yeah, well, I will say this. The pink light is very low level. And that's
Sure.
what he meditated on, okay?
Right.
Again, very chemical, very sort of chemical consciousness. My black cat just came in through the window. Um, I was going to tell you a creeper story, but we'll save it for another time. And I got to be careful, right? Like
Oh yeah.
I can't really give up how they do, but I can tell you that this book was commissioned, okay? It was commissioned. And um yeah, and in my own life, and even since writing The Devil in Us, I've dealt with things more odious even than the demons. I mean,
Mhm.
there's something about this writing. You talk about engaging the Black Lodge.
Oh yeah, that
Um,
was
I
bad.
mean, I had a direct encounter that lasted about 3 weeks up here on the mountain, probably a result of the work I've done, with a tall white Draco,
Oh,
physically incarnate on its planet, psychically projecting to Earth. That's the
yeah, it
kind.
wasn't pleasant.
Well, it manifested as a horsefly infestation on my front balcony, and after 8 years of living up here, I've never seen horseflies. You
But
know?
that's how they do it.
Yeah, that's how they do it. And
And
yeah.
it's unpleasant.
Yeah, I gotta say, I honestly thought this interview was going to be lame. I didn't know who you guys were, man. This has been fascinating, you know.
We get
Most
around.
most people can't keep up with me, but I can barely keep up with you guys.
Oh no, no.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. I mean, it is a different I do want to go into that more detail at some later date.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're a journalist whose beat is the transcendent, huh?
I have been tasked with writing things that are relevant to the time we live in, and I do it in a certain way. Like Stardust Ranch is not a typical UFO book.
Oh no, I
People,
gotta read it.
yeah. By the way, every book I write, there's a certain energetic signature to it, and a significant portion of the readers have tangible paranormal experiences.
Now I
And
really gotta read it.
90% of the readers will have dream space, changes in their dream time for a couple weeks while reading the book.
I think I'll skip The Devil Within Us if I'm gonna have to interface any of that stuff, but I'm
The
definitely in to start
Devil
it.
and Us, a
The Devil and
memoir of
Us.
you and me.
Well, just
And
think a writer's terminology is exactly as the same as a magician's.
Yeah,
So a grimoire is just another way of saying grammar.
right.
If and what do you do when you write? Spell.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's true. I never
And
thought of it.
as you gather together your materials, you are calling forth these forces.
Well, it's
Absolutely, yeah,
I've always believed that writing is an alchemical process.
yeah,
At some level, it is a form of alchemy.
yeah.
All right, so we have 8 minutes left. This is a part where you pitch the hell out of all your stuff. So I'm going to stop
We have
talking.
only 8 minutes left.
I've talked
7
about,
now.
I've already mentioned all the books, but
Oh, just do it again.
okay,
It's all
so
you,
the
man.
thing, this is the thing, okay? You got to read them in sequence because I did not see any of these books coming. They all just sort of fell in my lap real quick in the middle of nowhere in the rainforest. So the first one is Stardust Ranch, subtitle The Incredible True Story, John Edmonds and Bruce McDonald. The second one is The Light of Darkness, A Warrior's Tale for Our Time, Robert Wiegand and Bruce McDonald. And the third one is The Devil in Us, A Memoir of You and Me, Bruce McDonald. And they're all up on Amazon. And you will not, if anybody listening to your show, you'd be crazy not to listen to it. If you like what Olav does on this show, it's that on steroids. And with a literary slant, I might say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the forces brought you here because our listening audience is on the frequency you are on, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So they're well worth your time. Start with Stardust Ranch. If you don't like that, don't keep going. But they do get progressively darker. Okay. But the age we're living in is getting progressively darker,
Well,
right?
there are a lot of people believe we're in the eschaton. So that's
Yeah,
Well, that's why I started
I don't even-
illustrating children's books.
yeah, I don't
put some
believe
love in the world.
I don't believe this is the end, but I believe
Well, it's a transformation, right?
yeah, yeah. Again, that would be the sort of homeopathic term for it. I would call it an organized depopulation event, and it can go either way. A certain amount of people who survive the depopulation are going to be this right-handed transcendent, and then there's going to be a bunch of people on the left-hand side, which are going to become, I don't know,
I don't know either.
part
But
machine, part demonically influenced. I don't know. I don't
and
know.
the reason
So stay tuned.
the reason that I'll take your bet is because the thing about the Sanhedrin,
Yeah.
that's right out of, the end days, and that's prophesized within that they
Well,
build the
can
Temple
I-
of Solomon and the
Without
Sanhedrin and
well,
the false prophet.
we're on a clear track to the Temple of Solomon. Clearly,
Oh, I know.
yeah. So can I, without being a weasel, can I just extend the bet a little bit? Not the money, but the conditions.
Okay, sure.
It can be either the Cardinal of Colleges or the Sanhedrin, which are really the same thing now. Amish, Mennonites, same thing. You know?
Yeah, I'll go for that
All right, thank you. A buck it is.
because I understand where you're going with that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to
You know,
limit it, but I would get I say the Sanhedrin because they're the real authorities, right? I think. And
Sure.
so
I mean, I know who the Sanhedrin are. That in and of itself is a good thing.
do you think this Passover 2025 they sacrificed the three red heifers?
I don't know.
I think they did. I felt it.
Yeah.
I think they did. Very ugly ritual, man. They actually put the ash of the dead animal all over them. I
Oh,
mean,
I know.
that's the height of chemical consciousness, right? And dark chemical consciousness.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, these rituals go somewhere. And so you'll never know for sure. So it's like any conspiracy game. You have to look for the outer ring of it to see if the signs are there. You have to look for the breadcrumbs.
Olav, do I have your permission to upload this interview to my Substack and
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and push to
Sure.
YouTube and Spotify?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
We want our interviews to go wherever they go.
As
We
long as you
appreciate
call it chapter 1.
it. Yes, I would call it chapter 1.
Yeah, because next
Oh.
time I want to talk a little bit about all the years I spent on the psychiatric wards.
Yes.
And I can tell you about
We were just,
demonic possession.
yes.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I agree
all-
with Jerry Marzinski 100%.
And all the levels that you guys were talking about, you check all those boxes. It's all of the above.
And
You know, if I remember
Go ahead.
correctly, Ed just usually said, hi-yo. Your Ed just talks a lot.
Huh?
Ed McMahon.
Oh, you know, I would.
I'm just kidding you, bud. I lived with stand-up comics for 2 years in the early 2000s. I'm wickedly funny when you get me going.
I would enjoy putting you on the phone with Greenfield. I think that would be fascinating.
Well, I'll tell you what, you give me his email and I'll send him a copy, a Kindle version of The Devil in Us. If he gives me his Scout's honor word, he won't distribute it to anybody else.
Oh yeah, no, he wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I'll send
Okay,
him.
so it's going to be a round table, huh?
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, if you think I'm fun, Alan's more fun than I am. I'm the student. He's the teacher.
He's
Yeah,
quite the jester, I will
He
say
is
that.
he is very funny. Yeah, you get him going, he's a riot. Well, thank you again for coming on.
thanks
It's
for
been
having me.
an
Yeah,
illuminating 2 hours.
Well,
We
you,
didn't even take a break.
you owe this to Chris France. Remember, he made this introduction.
Okay.
All right, peace out, guys.
Peace out.
Okay.